Hello, everybody, and welcome to Between the Seasons, the mini-series from Why Does It Feel So Wrong to Be Human at Work. I'm Pinaki Kathiari, and with me is our producer, Bree Bartos. Say hi, Bree.
Hi, everyone.
And joining us today is, as our special guest, is Lottie Bazley, Internal Communications Manager and podcast host. So welcome, Lottie.
Thank you so much for having me. And we were just saying before that this is the first time I've been a guest on a podcast. So I'm feeling the pressure now that I'm like, I have to be the interesting one, where normally it's like, I just let you guys do all of the talking. But no, I'm really pleased to be here. So thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. You are the interesting one here. So you don't have to work too hard at that. But yeah, for today's conversation, we're talking about communication at work. You know, there's a thing that we do at work where, we're one self at home and then we're another self at home. And we do this code switching all the time. And it's a kind of a natural phenomenon, but at the same time, it takes a very distinct thing at work. And it's really funny about that. So I wanted to spend some time talking about that and getting into that, how it happens, why it happens, and just how should we handle that moving forward. But I was thinking before we get into that, Lottie, maybe the one thing interesting about you is you are kind of two roles. Are the internal communications manager there, as well as the podcast host. And we were kind of talking about that earlier. We were thinking like, what is that kind of like the Kara and Supergirl type of role? Do you do you have like is this like an alter ego thing? How do you one manage both, and what is it like kind of having both at the organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I will not be mad at being compared to Supergirl, of course. But yeah, it really is. It's interesting you say, because I think, and I've been obviously thinking a lot about communication at work, knowing that we were recording this today. But I definitely have these kind of, like you say, you have your kind of home persona, you have your work persona, but even within different roles or whoever it is that you're speaking to, you have kind of the right persona or like the acceptable persona for each one. And I'd never done, I did when I was at university, I hosted a radio show with my best mate, but that was very much like we just played 90s music and it was kind of fun and no one really listened to it. We just did it for the fun. And then someone offered me the podcast host and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't really ever done anything like this that's like serious, that isn't just me and my mate doing a radio show, And I really had to like hype myself up for it. And I'm quite a chatty person. I'm kind of an extroverted introvert. So it's something that I maybe have to dial up a little bit more. But when you're doing internal comms, you can kind of think about stuff more. You can ponder it over. You can read it. You can reread it. You can get other people to check it for you. But when you're doing a podcast or something, it's just like, okay, well, what I'm saying is what I'm saying. And I can't kind of check myself. And am I speaking too much? Am I not saying enough? But I really had to like dial it up to do this kind of podcast thing because they're two very different mediums. I think my personality hopefully comes through in both, but yeah, it's a very different kind of style of me, I guess you would say.
Yeah, that's such a, one of these days I'm gonna work at so I could get the internal comms version of you and see what that's like.
It's also like working at as an internal comms person at an internal comms company. There's this whole like inception thing, and it's great because we have great engagement with our people because they all know loads about internal comms, but it's also a double-edged sword because everyone thinks that they're like the expert in internal comms. So there's also this whole extra layer within that we're dealing with as a team. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
It is. And I think it's fascinating. Oh, actually, I'm going to back up for a second. You said you were a DJ, or in the disc jockey sense of DJ. Was that like, how close was that before you started the podcast?
Many, many years ago.
Okay,
so it was like I say, it was when I was at uni, and yeah, I was very much an aspiring DJ rather than an official one. But I think there's definitely some elements that kind of come into it. And when I was at uni, I was studying English and journalism, and a lot of that kind of translate into the world of comms as well. So there are definitely some parallels.
I had to go off topic there for a second because two reasons. One, I am doing a talk right now with Monique Sicknick for the IABC World Conference, um, drawing the parallel between communications or internal communications and DJing
Mhm.
at a nightclub
Oh
on
my
that. And
gosh.
so, yeah, so this is very interesting, and there's a lot of interesting parallels. One of the things that I realized while I was writing this is when I was in house at a large enterprise global communications function. Um, we were at a retreat and realized that there were a lot of my colleagues that were former DJs, either in the records or the disc jockey DJs,
Mhm.
just kind of playing music, which is pretty interesting and fascinating. How I just anecdotally know how kind of folks come from one to the other, stuff like that, which is
Yeah, that's a
fantastic.
fun one. Love
Yeah,
that. I didn't realize
uh,
there were so many of us out there.
Yeah,
yeah.
Pinaki's a DJ.
I'm,
I don't know if you know that.
I'm,
I was
I'm what
I
you
was
call
going to ask.
yes, I'm what you call the living room DJ. So I have my like living room set up right
You'll
over
set
there.
up there.
I actually broke it apart to do this setup here for a second.
Oh, well, I
But
assumed that it's a Friday and you'll be putting it straight back together afterwards.
yeah. Oh man, I can't wait. I start itching and stuff. But yeah, I'm not that great, but I enjoy doing it. And maybe one day you'll hear some beats and stuff like that. But speaking of like that switching roles, right? We're talking about you being Supergirl and Kara over there, and it's interesting how like the podcast you has your voice and it's just you out there, and the internal comms voice is like you're saying you're like kind of writing it and have time to kind of think it through,
Mhm.
and I think that like when you start bringing those two together it turns into a really powerful thing because like now behind your words there's an authenticity being that like this was not pre-rehearsed, we didn't come up with this, it didn't go through several rounds of reviews, this is just
Mhm.
you talking. Like have you found that kind of melding of the two since you've started the podcast?
I think so, yeah. And it's I don't want to be dramatic and be like, "Oh, I found my own voice," but often
There is
at
a
times,
finding of your voice, I think, because I
Yeah.
had to do the same too, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think also, a lot of time in internal comms, if we're, there's like a competition we're running, for example, now it's like an engagement competition where that can be my voice as the internal comms and engagement team. But a lot of the time in internal comms, you're ghostwriting for someone or you're sending out
Hmm.
communications that has somebody else's name at the bottom. And I think it's also tricky sometimes to be putting stuff out there when you feel like maybe it's somebody else's authentic voice. It's not
Hmm.
your authentic voice, but you're still kind of pitching in and helping this person find their authentic voice. But there's
Yeah.
obviously some of your influence going in there as well. So I guess there's like another whole section of it where it's a bit me, but it's also, if I'm ghostwriting for you, it's a bit you, and then it's a bit HR if they have to come in and read it as well. So I feel
Yeah.
like I'm sounding like I'm having some sort of identity crisis now. I promise
No.
you I'm
You,
not.
no, I think well, I think when it comes to internal comms, I think there is a bit of identity crisis because we do. I wouldn't say crisis, but there's an identity thing because you're kind of
Hmm.
you're setting up a story and a journey, and it involves different people. And I kind of conjecture that this work that we do from like podcasting and getting the authentic voices out there, having that practice allows us to coach or guide people who don't have that practice.
Hmm.
Right. So, like, kind of as the executive or the CHRO or whatnot kind of needs to communicate, trying to interject that like live, authentic voice into the conversation rather than it just being an email or something like that
Hmm.
actually probably makes a difference in that way. At
Hmm.
least that's what I'm finding. Like as far as communicators, we do it. There's a little bit of like cheerleading and hyping people up throughout that I find as well. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, to what we were talking about like earlier, as far as like how people communicate like in their home lives, and then when they come to work, how does that shift? Do you notice that shift, and do you notice that like it's starting to blend more and more? How are you seeing it on your side?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it definitely depends organization to organization. Of course, like the place that I work now and the place I worked before were both startups, and I think, there's that element of energy, and, everyone's just trying
Mhm.
to learn as they go along, and people don't, they're comfortable to make mistakes, and you kind of have this safety of, oh, we learn as we go type thing. So I think
Mhm.
it would definitely depend on the organization, and the person as well. Like there are just some people that are more comfortable being themselves, or you mentioned masking, or code switching, even that some people start in different places than others as to how they can show up at work. um Forgive me, I forgot the actual question now. Can we
No,
just remind me?
all good. It was we just talk about, like, kind of if you've noticed, the difference between, uh of that code switching, is it kind of like coming together more, or are we kind of drifting more apart? Like, are we kind of are the roles that we're playing in and out of work more
uh,
authentic, or are they
mhm,
kind of getting more polarized, being like, I'm a robot at work and a human
mhm,
at home type of thing?
Are we
yeah,
masking less or more
Are we?
lately?
That's
yeah,
probably the best way to say it.
cool.
Thank you,
Thank
Bree.
you, thank
You're
you.
welcome.
That's why she's our producer.
So yeah, I think, as I say, it kind of depends on the organization or the person. But I
Hmm.
also think I was again doing a bit of research before we were having this conversation today. And I think there's even you kind of, you're showing your emotions at work, but there's also this concept of like, there's a woman called Ali Hochschild, and she has this theory, and I hope I don't butcher this, but it's about emotional labor, which is that people now feel comfortable to show emotions at work, or they certainly are more so than they used to be. But sometimes they're the right emotions rather than how someone is actually feeling. So, for example, if I'm in a meeting and I'm presenting something, but I'm like pretending to be confident when I'm not feeling confident, or
Hmm.
if someone has a really bad idea, but I have to pretend that it's a great idea because that's what's warranted at the time, or if a peer gets a promotion that you don't think is well deserved, but you have to be happy about that for them, So there's even this, I guess, kind of like meta part of it where you don't have to mask so much at work, but is that actually how you're truly feeling, or is this just this kind of expected emotion
Hmm.
of you, which I thought was like a super interesting concept.
Yeah. And it's interesting how we could understand that, like, we can have two emotions at the same time,
Mhm.
and both can be true, because we could feel genuinely happy for someone, but be disappointed that
Yeah.
maybe they got the spot we didn't get, or something to that effect. So it's kind of like kind of honing into that,
Mhm.
right? What are you thinking, Bree, on your side, as far as kind of seeing the masks and like the human at work?
Sorry, Jarvis decided he needed to
We
also
have a
give
cat.
his
Yes.
input when you asked. But I was thinking, like, as you were talking, we really are expected to be positive more often than not when we're at work. So, like you were saying, like we have to be celebrating. If someone got promoted, we're expected to be like, oh yeah, good job.
Hmm.
We're expected to be constantly positive, which isn't a bad thing. But also I wanted to say, like, I think how much we mask at work also depends on the culture that that company
Mhm.
has.
Yep.
Because, I've worked for places before where it didn't feel like you could come to work and really be human at work. You couldn't really share what was bothering you and things like that. And so at those jobs, I had a list of like, oh, when I see this person, it's, hey, how's it going? How's the weather?
Mhm.
You smile, you nod, you just have all of the things that you're supposed to say and do. Because it was a company that, like, they didn't foster connection with coworkers, or
Mhm.
they didn't have care really in the culture and things like
Mhm.
that. And so you weren't being human, you weren't being you. We were very much masking and just there to show up, get the job done,
Yeah.
go home.
Yeah, and it's strange too, because, like, we're not. What happens in that situation is we don't get to, like, fully understand the context of someone. Like,
Mhm.
just for example, like, the other day, we started off a meeting, and someone on the meeting just had a, let's say, a interesting altercation with a caretaker of their child, and that was, um, it was disturbing to this person. And we just kind of talked about it for a few minutes. We all kind of like empathized, and just to kind of understand. And then,
Mm.
we found a way to transition back into what we were talking about. But I think that kind of like break of just acknowledging the human, the emotion, and like, wow, we have this context of what you're going through emotionally as we're
Mm.
getting into this conversation, uh, just at least allowed for things to keep moving, as opposed to when you're kind of holding something in, you feel guarded and then you're holding this in and it could feel unnerving. But at least I was hopeful that this person had a chance to like let go, almost have a little bit of a mental palate cleanser, and then kind of get into the work, which in theory should have like flowed smoother, and
Mhm.
things like that. And
That's really good that someone felt comfortable enough to, like, have that conversation, I guess I mean, it was a bit of a
yeah.
buzzword a few years ago, but, like, the psychological safety
Hmm.
and,
Mhm.
it's that, "Okay, here's how I'm coming to you today. This is what I've got going on." And then you
Hmm.
hopefully understand someone's reactions better or, if yeah, I'm very much, an oversharer at
Hmm.
work, so I feel like
Yeah.
if I'm coming in a bad mood, I'm saying, like, "I'm in a terrible mood today, guys." So if I'm a bit short or, if I'm slow at replying to Slack messages, like, this is why, or I had a terrible night's sleep, so I'm going to log off early today because my brain is just not in the right place. And then you help to foster those relationships better because people
Hmm.
understand where you're coming from and
Mhm.
why you might be feeling a certain way. And it's that classic thing of like, you never know what's going on in somebody's life. If someone cuts you up on the street or swears at you,
Hmm.
you just I always kind of give people that grace of, hey, I don't know what's going on in this person's day, but when you have the ability and the safety to have that conversation with people at work, like how much better can your relationships get and how much better can you collaborate on things because you know where this person's at.
I also I feel like whenever you have that option to share what's weighing you down and what's bothering you, like when you share it, it is right, Panaki, like you said, it's kind of a mental palate cleanse
Mm,
because like if something's really, really bothering me, but maybe Panaki doesn't know about it and I have like 5 projects I need to get done, I'm also thinking about what's weighing me down in my personal life and bothering me. And also like, oh, I have to get all these things done. And they don't know that this thing is happening in my life right
mm,
now and that it's slowing me down because I'm so anxious or caught up in it. And they expect me at 100%, but I'm not at 100%. But when you
mhm,
tell, your manager or whoever you're working with, like, hey, just so you know, I'm not at 100%, they were like, "Oh, okay. I'm not expecting you to get all 5 projects done today. Thanks for letting me know." Like, it's able like, whenever I'm able to open up, which I tell Pinocchio all the time what's bothering me, I'm also a chronic oversharer. I love to share. But, like, oversharing helps me be like, "Okay, he knows." So, like, he knows, like, "Hey, this might not get done today, but it will get done this week. It's
mhm.
just gonna take me a little extra time." And admitting that just provides so much relief and it provides more brain space to like actually think about the work you have to do because you're less stressed about like, oh, if this personal matter gets in
Hmm.
the way of my work today, like XYZ might happen. But I'm also a catastrophizer and like someone with anxiety. So like
We're very similar, Bree.
I've never heard that word before. I like that one. Catastrophizer.
yeah,
Tick.
I very much am. And so like being an oversharer, like it does help me so that people around me understand and know. And I'm very grateful that I have an environment where I can tell people, like, hey, this is what's going on and why I'm not just like on the ball today. And thankfully, I work in an environment with people that are okay with that and understand that we're all human.
And it's
Yep.
good to live by example, right? I think sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such an overshare. And in a team meeting, I say something. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, are these people just like, what is she on about? Please be quiet. Like, we need to talk about work stuff. But I think if there's at least one person that's doing that, maybe not quite to the level that I am, it then
Mhm.
opens up that, like, okay, this is a
Hmm.
safe space to talk about
Mhm.
these things. And there might be someone else that didn't think that that was a safe place to share, or they might be harboring something that as soon as one person does it, it kind of opens the door. And especially if a manager can do it and that kind of lead by example, like, we're not saying that we need everyone's, life stories or sob stories or
Mhm.
whatever, but just someone to say, hey, do you know, I'm really stressed about this project. Like if my
Hmm.
manager were to say that to me, I'd be like, wow, okay, this is a safe space. We can
Yep.
talk about these kind of things.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that I was in a talk I did. It was it last month now, but I said, what's not safe for work is talking about feelings,
Mhm.
because it you do feel like you have to like lock it in. We do work with people. We do work with clients who you know they're feeling something right now in this moment in this meeting, but they're containing it for quorum of everyone there, um, because yeah, we want to hear about it. But there is, I think, the another side to it, right? Because when I think the way Bree you mentioned it is like, hey, there's something going on without getting into details or anything like that. I just want to let you know that I'm not 100% today,
Yeah.
and this is what's happening. And then there's kind of when you when you start sharing, which I think is helpful, but what happens is there's a kind of negativity or frustration or stress that then comes off to the people who listen to it, right? Because you're hearing a story that hurts you, and so now you're taking it in, and so there's a kind of a part of the whole communication interplay that is relieving myself. Some of that stuff is going into other folks, and so we also need to wait to like make sure that it's not heavy on other people as well.
Hmm.
And so that's a crazy psychological trick all around communications and sharing positive and negative news and how it kind of like ripples out towards an organization. And I might be getting way meta here and stuff like that, but do y'all ever think about that? Like kind of both sides of that, like as we're sharing and communicating, that might make it a little bit more safe for work.
I think for me, and again, this is part of, I guess, the kind of different versions that each person has of themselves, right? I'm going through the same thing. I will tell my best friend, my husband, my dad, my manager, a slightly different version of
Mm.
that. And I
Hmm.
think you sort of almost do that. Or, if my friend's having a really bad day and I'm having a really bad day, I probably don't choose that day to be like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I also have this crazy thing that I'm dealing with that's making me sad, happy, whatever the emotion is. So I think you kind of do that automatically, but it's really interesting that I've never thought about it like consciously to be like, what should I tell my manager about what I'm going through without also because then I guess you put pressure on someone to have like the right reaction,
Mm-hmm.
like if someone is not used to oversharing or even just being
Mm-hmm.
open with their emotions, that you then kind of like you say, you put that there's a bit more ownership on them to have like the right reaction. And if they don't have the right reaction, then that could also be detrimental to your
Mm-hmm.
relationship rather than, more
Which
productive.
which is probably where it all starts from, why we were so careful of what to say at work, because at the end of the day, we have to come back and work together again. So we're
Hmm.
trying to like create this like relationship that's very s- safe, stable, uh, in that
Long
way as
term.
well. Right. So it's interesting. That's why I kind of talk about it from like both perspective, because in the other side of the fence, right? Like when you come in, like you were saying earlier, or we were all saying earlier about we have to be happy and positive in this certain scenario. There's something about like mirror neuroning, right? Like that kind of brings people together, right? So
Hmm.
as we're all in agreement or feeling the same feelings, we're kind of drawing bonds together as well. So you can see how that kind of plays into the wanting of everyone to be excited about this event as well,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So,
I think personally, I need to be better at like. I'm someone who will like read a really bad news article and then be like, "Hey, did you see that?" And I'll be like, afterwards, like I do this to Pinaki all the time, and I'll like tell him like a horrible news article I saw, and like watch the like energy drain from him. And then I'm like, you maybe shouldn't just like dump horrible news on people and then just be like, okay, bye.
uh,
Because like that's really gonna ruin their day, and I'm
no,
terrible at it.
Yeah, like
no, no,
as you
you have
say,
never
like
ruined
a
my day, Bree. Just to say it
Okay,
out
well,
loud.
that's good.
as a catastrophizer, it's like coming in to be like, oh my God, have you been worried about this? Because if you're
Yeah.
not, you absolutely should be.
Yeah,
And why are
exactly.
you
Well,
not?
thank you.
Yes.
Read all of this research I've done and tell me how good
Yeah,
you feel about yourself after.
I think Lottie, we
ex
really do have the same brain. Because yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm like, oh, I can relate.
I've been thinking a lot about the transitions into things, the transitions from fall into spring and the transition between spring into summer, etc. Like I remember reading not too long ago in Ayurveda practices that it's it's those transition periods that you have to be careful of. And it made me think about the transition between one topic to the next, or the one thought to the next as well. And sometimes depending on, like, you know, when you're going from like here to here really fast, that could be jarring. But if you, transition
Mhm.
and stuff like that, that could be a little bit more helpful, or at least being mindful of it has been helping me too. And even the other way around, like when I'm used to Bree saying just crazy stuff to me already now, so it's all it's all good. And I'm also used to hearing at any given point something happening, and I'm used to kind of just setting myself up for that. I think I've been practicing the mental practice of going from oh crap to okay, and then there's some steps in between, and there's an internal practice that I have that I'm trying to get to okay faster each time.
Mhm.
But depending on like whatever pops up in front of me, uh, that could take a different amount of time to process through that.
The transitional thing, I think, is a really interesting one for me, and actually something that I'm working on personally myself, because like I say, I am a bit of an oversharer, and I do like to have at the start of my one-to-ones with my manager or like the team meetings, have a bit of that. Kind of, I guess, small talk, but a bit more meaningful small talk. But I'm also a very specific type of personality. I'm basically the only one that ever puts anything on our team meeting agenda, because I'm like, I need to speak about this. I need to speak about this. I need to speak about this. Like, I'm very ordered and structured. And I sometimes find it really difficult to go from the like, me and my manager have a great relationship, and we probably spend 80% of our one-to-ones talking about life and general stuff. But I
Sounds
find it
familiar.
really difficult to then be like, I watch the clock and I'm like, oh, we have 5 minutes and I actually have some quite serious work stuff that I need to talk to her about. And just finding that transitional moment of like, do we just go, okay, stop now, we need to talk about work? Or like, giving someone the space to have that, but then also being like, okay, well, when are we going to talk about the work stuff? So maybe I need to read some of the same studies that, that you have been, because I'm terrible at that
Yeah,
transition.
Oh man.
we have a tendency to go off on tangents, and
Hmm.
like I've worked with Local Wisdom now since June 2025, and as of recording this in April, still less than a year. But thankfully, Pinaki and I figured out real quick how to rein ourselves back in, and it is just being like, okay, enough of that tangent. Let's go back to what we were
Hmm.
talking
Yeah.
about. Like we have to like actually recognize it and say out loud, "Hey."
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where it is. It's kind of whenever something like that happens, what we did was we just talked about it. Like, hey, this is something that observed happened.
Mhm.
And here's what we could do about it. And sometimes we let it go, and sometimes we like, oh, all right, let's go back to, and we actually go back tangent by tangent to resolve the different like forks that we've created throughout it, and then move forward. But I think it's a good thing, because it builds this it builds a better way of communicating when we just kind of really understand each other. And
Hmm.
at the
Mhm.
same time, we're just kind of balancing that like human side versus the business profit side, because the business profit side is like you just need to be productive
Mhm.
100% of the times. And what what we're trying to say here is, when you have this human side like working really well, the productive side flows so much easier, and it
Hmm.
feels like you're going with the flow rather than against the flow, or in any kind of different angle from the flow in that way.
Hmm.
So maybe as we kind of wrap up this one, love to hear your thoughts, and just any kind of what would help to kind of folks to be more human at work. What kind of things should we think about from like transitioning, and how much we could put of our authentic selves out there and whatnot? Any final thoughts from either of you on that one? I
I
like
Go
how
was
on,
you
Bree.
both took a breath
No.
together. That was awesome.
and then looked at
I
each
was like,
other
oh
like,
man, it was
"You
gonna be
go
like
first."
it's gonna be like surround
I'll
sound. I was
follow
gonna
you.
love
I
it.
want to see what you have to say before.
You do
I
rock paper
was
scissors.
I was going to say like something that Pinaki and I do that I feel like really does help is, and not everyone has time for this or loves to have meetings as much as I do. But Pinaki and I, we have, our one-on-one every week. And then we also have a co-working session that is a bit more flexible. Like if we don't have time for it, then we cancel it. But, our one-on-one, that's like the agenda. These are the things we have to check off. But then our co-working session, it's like, these are things that we can work on together, or we could just like, oh, I had this idea. Let's brainstorm. Let's talk. And sometimes we just get talking, and like you said, the ideas start flowing, and we just get into a good groove. And we've also found, we've tested it once out. We hosted a yappy hour with some of our coworkers, because we're remote here at Local Wisdom, and we're all kind of spread out, and so it's hard to connect with each other as people. And so, like, just 1 hour where we get together and just talk about things we're working on at work, social media ideas, if we have some of the thought leaders on the call. And just, we ended up, after the first hour of just talking, everyone felt more relieved. Everyone was
Mm,
like, "Huh, it's been so busy lately. Like, this was great. This was wonderful." Some of us walked away with like to-do lists of like ideas for things we could create. And that was really nice. And I definitely want to do more of those in the future. But I think just like scheduling a little bit of time to just chat really does make
mm.
a difference.
Mhm. I totally agree, and I know, but especially I'm very remote from my team as well, and there's lots of people within this business that are remote. And I mean, clearly I'm biased because I work in comms, but I think communication is the key to any relationship. So just communicate as much as you can, and totally agree with you, Brie. Like, book that time in to just have a session that's just chatting. Like, there doesn't need to be an agenda. You bounce ideas off of people. You actually get to learn, oh, I didn't realize that Bree was into this sort of thing. And actually,
Mhm.
this project that I'm now working on, maybe I wouldn't have thought to have asked you about it before, but now I know you're interested in XYZ, which we maybe wouldn't have discovered if we were just doing the very transactional, businessy stuff. And any opportunity that you can, if you're lucky enough to have like a get together in person, because you also get to find out so much more about a person when you spend like an extended period of time with them, and you get to see certain things that maybe you don't pick up on when you're on a video call. And you can learn how someone's energy kind of dips. You can see how their energy goes throughout a day
Mhm.
if you've got a workshop rather than just the 30 minutes or the hour that you spend with them. So yeah, I'm a big fan of just communication. I don't think, well, maybe you can over communicate, but on a personal level, I think it's just about making sure that you have that person that you can talk to. And if they don't feel comfortable opening up so much, maybe don't do it yourself.
Mhm.
Maybe stop showing people bad news stories and putting all of your trauma on them.
Everything
Gotta
little
read
by
It's a
the
little.
room.
balance. Yeah.
It reminds me of a book I read a long time ago, a book on etiquette called How to Be a Gentleman. And what it said was your kind of goal is to just keep everybody in the room as comfortable as possible. And so they kind of think about it through that lens of like, sometimes comfortable is letting someone let their feelings out. Sometimes comfortable is letting my feelings out. And sometimes comfortable is just kind of balancing how much and I'm putting off and taking in and things like that.
Mm,
So it's interesting that above all else, it's just being mindful of what's going on in your mind while everything is kind of going around is probably the practice that I've been putting together or keeping at play.
mhm.
Yeah, with that said, I don't know if you have any last final words. We're going to wrap up this side of the podcast, but any final words between you, Lottie, or Bree? Any tidbits of wisdom or bits of wisdom to share?
Oh, I feel like that's too much pressure. I'll let Brie go.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like we're good. I think
yeah, I
this was
think
a
we are.
great
So
conversation. Thank you so much, Lottie.
yeah,
Thank you so
I'll
much for
close
having
out
me.
and we'll go into the second phase of this. Are we doing like the
Reddit.
Reddit read? Oh,
Yeah.
right on. So yeah, I'm gonna just close out this one and then we'll open up the second one, which will be more serendipitous. But so so uh before we close out, Lottie, just can you just share with our listeners where they could find some more of your work and what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. So you can feel free to add me on LinkedIn.
And we'll have all the links in the episode description.
Absolutely. So, Lottie, thank you so much for joining us today. Uh, as always, just appreciate conversations with Kara and Supergirl. And thank you for our listeners to tuning into this week's Between the Seasons from Why Does It Feel So Wrong? If you enjoy the conversations, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and do all the things that we asked you to do. We'll be back next week with another short and honest Between the Seasons episode. And so we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
You know, you even kind of look like Millie Alcock, who was casted as Kara in the 2025 film of Superman.
Oh my gosh, you guys, stop, because my head, I'm not going to be able to get out the door after this.